Todd McCombs, and it's my privilege to talk to you about the last video session, which is about transformation conversations. First off, it's important to understand that there's three real key components in having a transformation conversation. They're that we're clear, authentic, and passionate. And in addition to that, the goal in having the transformation conversation is that when we complete the conversation, that we touch, move, and inspire the other person. And there's two key components about why transformation conversations are important. And quite frankly, it's an important part of a lifestyle, not just something we do from time to time. One is transformation conversations keep our transformation alive. Transformation has a half-life. If we quit sharing, our transformation and the work God is doing in us tends to die off. And as we have transformation conversations, as we do those on a daily basis, it helps the Holy Spirit confirm and continue the work He begun in us. The other thing that's really important that a transformation conversation does is it creates a space in the people we're having the conversations with. If we're touching and moving and inspiring them, then it creates a space where the Holy Spirit can move in and draw them to Himself, hopefully draw them into possibly our journey and our mission that God has us on. And it creates opportunity that they may decide, and the Holy Spirit may confirm in their hearts, that they want to join the mission that God has us on. So one of the three key components that are evident in transformation conversations is being authentic. Authenticity in our world is not present very often. We all live in a world where we wear masks, we're not transparent, we hide, we try to look good or at least not look bad, we try to win or at least not lose. And everywhere we go in our life, that's what's going on in our world, and we have a way of being that we all develop, which is not authentic, which is a way of looking good or not looking bad. And so it's really important that we're authentic. We tell the truth about our lives. We tell the truth about our brokenness. We tell the truth about our hurts and wounds and pains and what God's doing in our life. And authenticity, or telling the truth about what's really going on in our life, is so rare and unique that it touches people, and it opens up a space in people. It creates a tenderness in people's spirits and souls, and it really creates room for the Holy Spirit to move and operate and draw people out. As you have that conversation, it gives the Holy Spirit an opportunity to work in other people's lives. Passion is another really key integral of the transformation conversation, because we're passionate people. We learn to wear masks. We learn to hide our passion, but we are by nature passionate people. And as we speak, as God is revealing things to us, as God's showing us, as God's moving in our life, and if we let ourselves be passionate, if we enter into the excitement and the enthusiasm and the passion of what we're experiencing with God, it translates to other people. It makes it seem real. It makes it seem unique. It creates a space where people can enter in and are more interested and might ask about what's really going on in your life, because it's unique and rare and it's appealing to people. Clarity is the third key component of a transformation conversation, and it's important to be clear. As we're clear, we help people see clearly what God's doing in our life. We help people see clearly what God is doing. We help them understand the possibilities that might exist in their life. And if they were enter into the same journey of what God could do with them, and if we're clear, they'll clearly embrace what we're saying and be interested in it, or they may clearly decide that's not for them and they're not interested in it. But clarity helps create possibilities in people, and it helps them be clear whether they want a journey with you or not. So let me clarify with you, if I can, misunderstanding that a lot of people have about a transformation conversation. Transformation conversation, you're not asking for anything. You're not trying to get anybody to sign up. You're not enrolling them, and you're not asking them to do anything. All you're doing, and I say all you're doing, it's a lot, but you are sharing authentically, passionately, and with clarity a work that God is doing in you, and then you're allowing and creating a space for the Holy Spirit to move in other people. And again, a key component in how you'll know if you're doing it successfully, you'll touch, move, and inspire the listener. And you're trusting the Holy Spirit, but there's no ask. You're not signing anybody up for anything. You're just sharing authentically what God's doing in your life. So I get to have a transformation conversation with you today. And this is pretty fresh in my life. It's actually an extension and revelation for me of a vow that I'd already learned I had. And it happened recently when I was in a 101 retreat. I heard Tricia Taylor talking about her prayer life being impacted by God, and that's what got me wondering. So I went back and started journaling about pain and hurt and where my vows came from. I knew I had vows and issues related to authority figures in my life. I made a vow as a child that I would not trust authority figures. As I went back and looked at where this came from again, I remember a story in first grade that marked my life that I'll never forget. I was excited about going to elementary school. I began elementary school when I was in first grade, didn't go to kindergarten. And I remember running up to the school, and they had the classes posted on the front windows of the school. And I remember being all excited about what teacher I would get and what friends would be in my class. And I entered school, and it was a different picture than what I imagined, because our school to me looked like a gulag or a prison camp, because all the teachers in my school carried long wooden thick paddles around in their hands as standard operating equipment. I've heard people tell stories about if you get in trouble, they'll send you to the principal's office and they'll take care of you. But in the school I went to, the teacher took care of you on the spot. As you walked to recess, as you marched to the cafeteria, they constantly had that paddle in their hand, ready to strike anytime a child stepped out of line. So what I remember is one day, I remember we were doing a math assignment, and we were all working quietly at our desk, and our teacher was walking up and down the aisle, and she was looking over a student's shoulder to see how they're doing. And all of a sudden I noticed my teacher yanked my best friend named Dan Allen up by the back of his shirt, paddled him several times, and sat him back down and kept walking down the aisle. And my friend Dan was crying, obviously, and I was terrified. And I remember thinking the teacher's coming my way. I don't even know what happened over there. I don't know why he got whacked, but I was scared to death that the same thing was going to happen to me. I walked home with Dan that day after school, which we did every day, and I asked him, Dan, why did the teacher paddle you like that? And he said, because she said I wasn't working fast enough. And that thought terrified me, because what happens if you're doing the best you know how to do? What happens if you're working as hard as you know how to work? You're giving it everything you have, but the authority doesn't think you're doing good enough, and you're punished because of something that you have no control over. And the thing that was really terrifying to me about that was the same system and message I got growing up in my home. In my home, in my family of origin, children didn't really matter. Children were to be seen and not heard. What children thought, felt, and said was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was authority. The only thing that mattered was the parents. The only thing that matters is what parents believed and what parents taught. And what you thought and believed as a kid didn't matter. And I had been brought up in that in my home, and I now learned that my school system had the same system in it that I had at home. I was in second grade, and I remember one day our teacher told our class that she had to go to the office, and she was going to be gone for a few minutes, and she was going to have the other second grade teachers look in on us, and we had better be quiet and keep our heads down and working. And if she got a bad report from any of the other teachers that anybody was doing anything, then we'd all be punished as a class. I remember thinking how unfair that seemed. I was 8 years old. I had no authority over these other kids in my class. I couldn't control them. And the teacher probably went 3 steps down the hall, and the class clown named Butch got up, and he starts throwing erasers and writing on the board and trying to make people laugh. And Butch also happened to be the strongest, toughest kid in second grade, so nobody was going to control Butch, at least in our class, or tell him what to do. Sure enough, as you would know, a teacher shows up in our door, tells Butch to sit down, and we're in trouble. Our teacher comes back, and so we got punished, and our punishment was we missed recess, and we all had to copy a sentence off the board over and over and over again during that recess period. And I remember thinking, how unfair. I'm being punished because I can't control my classmates, but I have no authority, and I have no ability to do so. And so it happened again. I felt abused by authority. And what I made that mean was you can't trust authority. Authority only cares about them and what they want, and what you think and feel is irrelevant. And you can't trust authority. The next story I remember was the 5th grade. And I had my first puppy love in class. And the girl's name was Rachel Randall. I hope Rachel never watches this video. But her name was Rachel, and we had a little puppy love thing going on. And back in those days, in 5th grade, that meant you wrote notes to each other. And Rachel wrote me a note this day. And I had the note in my pocket. And I was standing in the lunch line, and I was reached out in my pocket to pull out some money to buy an orange drink or something I was getting at lunch that day. And I had my hand in my pocket, and I pulled out my change, and I had a note in my hand that I'd gotten from Rachel that day, and I was reaching for the money, and all of a sudden a big old hand swooped down and grabbed that note and walked off. And I looked up, and it was my teacher. And I thought, I wonder what she's going to do with that note. And I was nervous through lunchtime, and it didn't take me long to know what she was going to do with that note, because we got back to class after lunch, and every day after lunch, she would read a book or part of a book or a story for a few minutes. And the reading material that day, when we got back from lunch, was the note that Rachel wrote to me. And she opened the note up, and she read the note to the entire class. And I remember being mortified. It's the most shameful, humiliated place I've ever been in my life. And it wasn't, I don't remember what was in the note, but it was personal, and it was silly things that 5th graders write, but it was very personal. And I remember thinking, how can this be happening? I mean, don't we have any rights? Isn't it okay for us to have some privacy? I thought the laws of our country protected us and guaranteed we have some privacy. And how can an authority come and a personal note, grab it and read it in front of your entire class? And so at the end of reading the note, she said that she wouldn't, this time, identify who the participants in the note were. And like nobody in the class knew that it was me. I almost threw up. I felt like crawling under the desk. I'm sure I was red, and so everybody knew it was me. And everybody knew it was the other girl too. So yet again, I had no privacy. The authority didn't want us writing notes, didn't want us passing notes. My own personal privacy, my own personal shame, my own personal embarrassment didn't matter to the authority, and the authority did whatever they wanted to do, and what I want and my rights and how it impacted me personally didn't matter. And yet again was another story of pain and hurt. And what I made that mean was you cannot trust authority figures. And what we learn in Faithwalking, if you recall, is events happen and we make them mean things, and that creates a false self. And so part of the false self that was created in me was I won't trust authority figures. And I made a vow that I'll never trust anyone in authority in my life. So that's not new, and I've understood how that's impacted authority. What I've never known before, and the revelation I just recently got, was that that's impacted my relationship with God. And what drove me to start looking at this again was, of all the spiritual disciplines of Bible reading, of prayer, of solitude, of fasting, the hardest discipline for me has always been prayer. I don't like to pray very much. Praying for me is hard. Praying for long periods of time is almost impossible. I've never really understood that. I felt bad about that in my whole Christian life. But what I learned from this and the connection is God's the ultimate authority. In that what I learned, I was living out of my vow in my relationship with God, that God can't be trusted. I know I looked at prayer as, and what I learned about prayer is the most intimate time with God. Of all the disciplines, it's when we're really intimate. We really share our heart. We really connect deeply with God. And I remember prayer always confused me. I always had the thought of prayer, I don't get it. God's going to do what He wants to do anyway. What do our prayers really matter? What's the point? And what I believe, and I know the Bible teaches, that God's all-loving. God deeply cares for me. God knows every hair on my head. And I wasn't living out in my relationship with God. I was living out of those old vows, and I was putting the face of authority of human beings that have abused me in my life. I was putting that on the face of God, and I didn't even know it. And it was impacting the way I came to God. It was impacting the way I saw God. And so in understanding that and connecting those dots of where that vow tied into my prayer life and why I struggled so much in my prayer life, I made a new vow that I'm going to approach God on the basis of who He really is. He is all-loving. He cares deeply about me. He cares deeply about what I think and what I believe. And He cares for my heart. And He's not like the authority figures in my life, in that I can approach Him and talk to Him on the basis of who He really is, not out of that vow of somebody I can't trust. So hopefully, in sharing that conversation with you, you'll see a work God's doing in me. And it's a work that He's revealing to me. He's drawing me nearer to Himself. He's transforming me. And hopefully I was able to tell that story in a way that created an opportunity and for a way for the Holy Spirit to speak for you or to you in a way that you might connect with me and might foster further conversation, or you get interested in the path and journey I'm on to seek God in a similar way for yourself. I want to emphasize again, if I can, how important and critical transformation conversations are, that you master them, and that you get, you master them in a way that you're able to be passionate and clear and authentic, You do it in a way that moves and inspires the people you're talking to, and it's a lifestyle for you. It's not, I did this thing during this Faithwalking deal, I did it during 201. Man, I'm glad I finished 201 because I don't have to do that anymore. But it's a lifestyle that we develop that keeps our transformation alive. That every day we're having transformation conversations with people that keeps our transformation alive. And it's amazing how when we master that and develop that as a lifestyle, of how God will open up people and use us in our stories to touch people and get them on mission and get them on journey with Him as we'll live into that. So this is the end of your last video session, and it's been an honor to get to share the story with you.